Well, I think, one phrase that always comes back to me is that if you want to build confidence, you have to build evidence. And I think a lot of us as men, we lack the confidence that we can do certain things that, we can be extremely good businessmen in life, but we might not have the confidence anymore because we're just too comfortable with where we're at in life. And there's really no need to be pursuing something else.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
Josh, JK, welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate being here, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Same here. We met a number of years ago at a mastermind, and I found out that you were in franchising, which is a small little piece of what you do. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I need to get to know this guy. And then we've got friendship now, and you're doing all kinds of cool things that I think franchisees will find fascinating. And I think one thing that I never hear you really talk about, and I don't think it's even a part of your identity, but you got started, you were a professional baseball player with the Rockies, mm-hmm. and then mm-hmm. turned entrepreneur. And then we'll talk about all the different companies that you have. And then you live in a small town out in the middle of nowhere, just like me. So that's why we're friends.
Yes, we can so relate.
Take us back. Let's go back to your story, and then I want to talk about all the companies that you're involved with, how you have it set up, how you evolved from to own today Coldwell Bankers, the franchise in multiple areas. Mm-hmm. You're involved in commercial real estate, residential real estate as investors. You've got a roofing company, a solar company, a cold plunge called Chili Dip that I own. I have one of those. Also, what else do you have? You said something else that I forgot.
Property management as well too. We do long-term and short-term rentals as well.
Yes. So franchisees and franchisors, he's the guy that you want as a franchisee, and franchisees, this is what I hear most of you wanting to achieve at some point. Mm-hmm. So, let's go back to the beginning. Give some context to you, your story, your family.
You bet, man. So I'll kind of go super high level on this, just because obviously, 48 years later, there's a lot of meat that's probably in that, but, grew up in small town, Casper, Wyoming, big fish, small pond. Happened to be pretty successful as an athlete, and had the opportunity, got drafted by the Colorado Rockies out of high school. Almost went to the University of Notre Dame, which that would have been to me the quintessential. I mean, I wanted to be that guy, the Rudy. I was going to go play baseball and then walk on and play football, And then when I got drafted, unfortunately, we just kind of I took a different turn and went to a small junior college out in Iowa. So I went from a small town to an extremely small town in Iowa. And from there, got drafted again. And then from there, went into the minor leagues, had a really successful career there, 26 years old. Ended up having my third and last surgery on my shoulder, and was not able to recover from that, unfortunately. So from there, basically had to get into, I tell everybody, I finally had to grow up at the age of 26. I was married. My dad was a builder, did not want to pound nails the rest of my life. I was uneducated. I was broke because obviously I was going to make millions of dollars. So why save any money right now? And so I got into real estate because it was a very, very quick entry into that field. It's 2 weeks of education and then you have your license. And so got into that. And this is 2006. And then, of course, obviously, we all know what happened in 2007. So the bust happened, and I really questioned getting out of it. And then what we did is we just doubled down, opened up Coldwell Banker in 2009. And then, honestly, all of these other companies that we have came from a necessity to diversify, because we in Wyoming live in a very, very boom and bust state. And so every 4 years through an election, we're either booming or we're busting because of oil and gas. And so we diversified so that we could have a continuously steady income, a stream of income coming in. And here we are, 24 years later. All the companies are starting to get grown, build out now. And we still have our franchise with Coldwell Banker, which they're a great company. We really appreciate being a part of them. And but I knew that we needed to have some independent companies as well too. So
All right. So was Coldwell your first like real business that you got into?
yeah, so when I first got into it, I was with Realty Executives as an agent, and then I went to a independent brokerage, and I got to see really like, when you're independent, you really are on an island by yourself. And unfortunately, you don't get the support. You don't get all of the things that these franchises have been able to support their owners with over the years. And so when we made a decision to either go independent or with a franchise, it was a very clear choice that we wanted to go with a franchise because we wanted the support, we wanted the recognition, we wanted the name, we wanted the brand and all the tools that came with it. So I had a business partner at that time, and we made a decision that Coldwell Banker was the best fit for us when it came to real estate.
So why not continue down the franchise route and just open up a bunch of different franchises?
Well, I mean, we're still a very small town, right? And so it's really easy, to be honest with you, to actually open up some of these independent companies that we have. My dad was a builder, and I've always told him for years, like, hey, we need to have a roofing side of this. One, because it would be just so beneficial for us. There's always roof replacements happening. And then I was in real estate. We're doing roof certificates all the time. Like just throughout the year, we're doing hundreds of them. I was like, why are we not capitalizing on this opportunity? We're already in construction. And so we did have an opportunity about 5 years into my franchise with Coldwell Banker to open up that side of the business, which is called MC Roofing. And when my dad retired, I was like, I don't want to do any of the building anymore. I want to make sure that we do the roofing though, because it is such a great business model to be a part of the real estate side of things. So, and there was no need for us to franchise that. There was no other, and I'm not aware of any franchises that are available for the roofing side of it or even the property management side of it as of right now.
How big is Casper? Like, give us a sense of what that market size is, because you're absolutely right. Some franchise brands will just say, yeah, start up in this small market. They're uneducated, emerging franchisors that really don't understand territory size, population, and what it takes to be successful. They see somebody that is successful and they're like, they're going to be successful in my brand. So I'm with you. A lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, they're from South Dakota. They're like, what can we open up in Spearfish? I'm like, there's 10,000 people here. There's not much you can open up. What about Rapid City? Maybe 100,000 people. There's more things that you can open up. But even with brands that may be roofing or different types of service brands, some of them you can, and it works, but it's still not suitable for a lot of franchise brands. And so, yeah, give us some color on the size and the demographics of Casper.
Yeah, so the main business is out of Casper. We're about 65,000 people. We have an office in Buffalo as well too, which is about 4,000 people, and then we have Sheridan as well, which is pushing around 22,000 people.
Real estate's one of those franchise brands that does work in smaller markets. You can see the tax businesses work in smaller markets. But and then some of the food brands work in smaller markets as well because of depending on where it is, but off of a major interstate or something like that, you're getting customers from different places. But a lot of businesses, franchises, you're better off starting on your own if you want to have a go of it in some of these smaller markets. What did you learn from Coldwell that helped you in future businesses?
Well, to be honest with you, one of the things that we why we stay with Coldwell Banker as well too, is because when there's opportunity for growth, we can always lean on them, and they can help identify other areas, other sectors for growth opportunities for us. So that's really big. The other thing is it's just so important to be able to not have to reinvent the wheel. So having access to other brokers, owners that have either very similar sizes or they're larger than us, but we can come up and glean the things that they're doing to be successful in their markets is always helpful. I think one of the benefits that we have in these small towns that you and I both live in is that we're not on the forefront of what's going on with whatever industry. We're usually lagging indicators, right? So like 2 to 3 years later, we're the ones we're getting affected by what they've already felt for the last 2 years. And so we're able to actually glean a lot of the adjustments that they're making in a timely manner so that we can actually not have to go through some of the challenges that they have had to go through. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to learn from people that have been there, done that. And it really helps us as we look at our growth model.
So give the audience a sense of like how large is your business, like the full enterprise right now. Like however you want to do that. But I
Sure.
know it's significant and we can just leave it there at significant, or you can
Yeah.
give a sense to the audience, because some people might be thinking, oh, small town, 65,000 people. He's doing all right. He's making, and they probably have a number in mind and they're probably way low. So if you want to give some type of gross revenue or customers or just comparables of like the whole HoldCo that you have, just to give some type of sense of the size of your company.
Sure, you bet. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll kind of actually let me back up just a little bit and help people understand a little bit too of like just the growth from an entrepreneur to a business owner. I think it's really easy. I think everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but then they realize that if they want to be successful, they have to become a business owner.
What do you mean
And
by that? I talk about that a lot, but what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you get into it because you're like, hey, listen, I want to be able to create my own schedule. I want to have time off when I want to have time off. I want to be able to I want the business to work for me. I want to, so they have this mindset that it's actually like you're going to be doing less work, making more money, and that you're not going to have to like be in the weeds of it and actually be doing the work, right? It's like, oh, and it's all going to be fun. It's all going to be roses. Everybody's going to love me. This is going to be amazing, right? Well, as a business owner, you have to realize like, I got to know my P&Ls, right? I got to establish my budgets. I got to make sure I'm making the right hires. I got to make sure that I have a right growth plan. I want to make sure that I got the right people on the bus, in the right seat, doing the right things so that we can continue to move forward. And so, and you also got to do the work, right? I mean, you got to work hard in these businesses. And I will say your last podcast that you did with Russ and Joey on Wealth Without Wall Street, one of the things I really appreciated and took away from that was when you look at a franchise, you're looking at the people that are successful in that franchise, and you're also asking them an opinion on the people that are not successful as an owner in those franchises. And I think that's really, really important. Something that I probably didn't do a good job of previous to this is figuring out like, what's it going to take to be unsuccessful in this business? If I do these things, will this not allow me to get success, right? So anyway, so before this year, as a matter of fact, this is actually a big year for us because we've really changed our model. Everything used to be around real estate because that was our first initial business was real estate. It was Coldwell Banker. And then what I kind of identified is that we had these spokes in the wheel that were basically complementing our real estate company, right? That was eight-pound gorilla was real estate, and then everything else was a complementary piece to it. Well, being in masterminds with you, understanding how franchises work, understanding how private equity firms work, it all kind of came together for me going, well, wait a second. Kalinowski Enterprises actually is a holding company for all of these companies, and they independently need to be successful. Listen, when you own multiple companies and you have nobody to, I guess, hold yourself accountable to, it's really easy to kind of subsidize companies because one might be hurting with cash flow at this moment. One might be really successful. So you start kind of cross-pollinating money back and forth, and you don't really identify the true issues. And that's what I found myself doing for the last number of years, was not directly going to each company and saying, hey, you have got to independently be successful. What's it going to take to be able to do that? So that's exactly what our model looks like right now. And as you and I spoke before, one of the things that we're really excited about with our growth plan is that for the first time ever, Kalinowski Enterprises is hiring a COO that will help us get to that level.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You could join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
So I think we're in a position where we at Front Street, we understand when our brands need to hire somebody like at the COO, CEO level, brand president level, and we see that, we understand it. And that's when we start coaching our founders. It's time. Or we might at Front Street bring in somebody, and we've done that before, like bring somebody into Front Street that has the expertise at the ops level to be able to help a certain brand. And we've done that before to help our brands. So give us a little bit more on like your mindset around that strategic hire.
Yeah, when you're building businesses out, you as a owner, you're wearing multiple hats and you're doing the best you possibly can. And unfortunately, a lot of those hats are probably out of your lane and your expertise. But when you're building, you don't know any other way around that. And you might not be able to hire for that either. Financially, it just might not make the most sense. And so you're forced to go into lanes that you're not exceptionally good at. And that's where I found myself. We're at a point now with our companies because we've added 2 additional. So Sun Solar is new for our roofing company. We implemented that in the fall of last year. Chili Dip Ice Spas is obviously a new company. We've been working on that for 2 years, but we're finally onto the market the end of first quarter of this year. And so just having the capacity to do a really great job is no longer something that I can do with the many hats that I'm wearing. And, you and I have a really great friend, Sharon Srivatsa, and he's a personal mentor and friend of mine as well, too. And about 2 months ago, we started talking
Wait a second. Let's pause there.
Okay.
Sharon is freaking amazing. And when you say mentor, he's really a mentor, not like you read his Facebook posts and he's a mentor. Give the audience a little insight into Sharon and your relationship with him, and then how that's kind of helped you with that COO, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I will tell you this. There was a great podcast that he had done years ago, and I listened to it, and he was literally talking about you have to be willing to pay to play. You have to be willing to pay to get to that level of play. And I had an opportunity to meet him, had dinner with him one evening years ago. And I had been looking for another mentor. My previous mentor and I actually were very close to becoming business partners. And so obviously there was no reason to be having him coaching me anymore. We became very, very good close friends. So for about 2 years, I was looking for who's that next person for me? I don't necessarily need a coach, but I do need a mentor. I need somebody to help me go to where I just have never been able to get to financially and business-wise. Met Sharon, and I knew right away, I'm like, I got to be in this guy's world. I got to figure this out. And so I just pursued that. I just continued to follow up with him. He was obviously very busy with what was going on with his world. And eventually it got to the point where we were having some conversations, and I just said, hey man, I don't know if you have room to coach and to mentor another person, but if you do, I would love that opportunity to see what that looks like. And he had one spot left open, and that was about 3.5, 4 years ago. And I took it, and I'm not giving it up until he tells me I have to.
I know he just transitioned. He's doing something new, and it's pretty exciting for him. Can you does that fit into the story, or do you want to share what he's doing now?
Yeah, it's amazing. So once again, about 2 months ago, him and I were talking about what that next level that we needed as Kalinowski Enterprises, and then what I needed to be able to, one, release and also not wear the hats of. And so we started designing the CEO position and what that personality needed to look like and what those responsibilities needed to look like and what those goals were going to be. And so, which was great because he was going through the same transition. Like he was interviewing and talking to companies that he would consider being the COO, right? Which is interesting, right? Like they weren't recruiting him. He's like, hey, I will consider being your COO if these things align, right? I mean, that's how much of in demand this guy is. And so it was just wonderful to be able to kind of go through that experience with him together. Obviously, a lot of it was hush hush. I wasn't aware of a number of things, which was totally fine. But I did have a little bit of an inside track on some things that he was working on. So one thing that came from it too, in addition to the COO, which I want to talk to all owners about this, is the implementation of an executive assistant. And Sharon and I have talked about that for years. I tried that about a year and a half ago, and it just failed. I failed at it miserably because I didn't really truly grasp and also implement the executive assistant like I could have. And so the two biggest positions now that we have that we're working through, which we're so excited, is executive assistants, which is a gal that has been with me for 16 years. She knows me as good as my wife does. And there's nobody better that could be that assistant. So she's been transitioning into that position. And then much like Sharon and Layla and Alex's story, we just hired our COO, which happens to be a great friend of mine for the last 8 years. And for 8 years, I've been trying to figure out how he could be implemented into our businesses, and the timing couldn't be any better.
So again, give us a sense of how big these businesses are. Or just say, Eric, I've already done that if you don't want to go any deeper, which is totally fine. But I think people are getting a sense that you started out at Coldwell, expanded that, expanded these other things. And so your HoldCo now is pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would say significant in comparison to the population that we're in. I would say, it's like the roofing company. This year we'll do about $8 million in revenue. Our goal is to continue to do that and 37% X every year, so that we 10X in 5 years. And then our property management has been a little bit stagnant. We've got just shy of about 230 doors right now, but we're ready to add another 64. We've got an opportunity for another 500. And so those are some things and some big projects that we're excited about. With our commercial, on residential commercial, the goal for us is always to be in the top 2. And so right now for commercial, we're the number 1 commercial agency in our markets that we are in, which is amazing. And then for residential, we're in that 3 to 4 right now currently. And we've been consistently in that 1 to 2. So our goals are always to be in that top 2%. We're actually, so once again, we've slipped a little bit in our residential, unfortunately, but that's okay. That's obviously one of the benefits of hiring a COO to help us get back on track.
So thank you for that, because I think that gives a sense of like what can be done in a population of 65,000. A lot of people that, they might not be in a large city, and there are advantages of being in these smaller markets. I own some commercial real estate and stuff where I live, but I don't have all my businesses have been outside, but I see the advantages of being in that smaller market. Okay, let's go to the HoldCo. How have you set this up structurally? So give us some insights into, hey, it's Josh and then COO, and then who reports to who, their partnerships involved. Give us a sense of like on a Monday as well. Like what happens on a Monday? How do you have communication chains and keep up with all of these different businesses?
You bet. Yeah. So once again, that's a little bit more of where this is going to be changing with our COO. But currently right now, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays is when we hold our biggest meetings for the offices. So first thing on Monday morning, I sit down with our broker for our residential side of the company and my executive assistant, and we go over what happened the rest of last week that I need to be aware of. We go about what the goals are for this week and things that we're doing, recruitment, agents, concerns, deals, transactions, and so forth, events that might be coming up and so forth. So we do that. We also do I do my calls. So like I'll do my MC roofing. And then here's the thing too. We have about a 30,000 square foot building. And so we house every one of our companies out of this building right here. So I'm literally one office away from having a conversation with one of our companies, which is really, really great to be able to do. So I'll go over and we'll have a conversation with MC Roofing and Sun Solar, figure out what happened over the weekend, things that we're working on this week specifically, and goals that we have that we're wanting to try to achieve over the next, couple weeks. How many contracts we have, how many repairs that we got going on, how many roofs are we looking at, and so forth. So we'll do that. And then of course in the afternoon, more meetings. I'll get into chili dip, any sales that we had over the weekend, fulfillment, any problems or issues that people have that we need to follow up with. And then on Tuesday is our big office meeting with all of our companies. So we'll do our in-person and Zoom calls that day. And then Wednesday is really dedicated to commercial. So this morning when we were recording, or prior to our recording, I met with all of our commercial guys, looked at deals, transactions, leases, new buildings coming up, and figure out what they need on their end. And so by the afternoon of Wednesday, it starts to open up so that I can start working on the projects and or the things that are moving the companies forward specifically.
All right. How do you see that going? Because there's going to be people that are listening that are in that where you are right now, and they want to make that transition. How do you see what's the future look like? What's next year look like?
So future is going to be this, is that
you sound a little excited. You're like, the future is going to be this.
Dude, I'm so excited about this, brother. I mean, one is I get to stay in my lane. I don't have to go into these other areas of business that I just do not like. They absolutely wear me out. So you got Patrick Lencioni as Working Geniuses, right? Have you taken that test? Right. So like, unfortunately, we end up finding ourselves having to work in these other geniuses that actually exhaust us and do not make us better. Right. And so between that and the Enneagram as well. So I'm going to stay in my lane, which is to be the visionary, to be the one that's the inspirer, the motivational guy, to make sure that we have the right people around. And then obviously making sure that everything is profitable and that there's money in the bank. Right. So we're secure there. Our CEO from there is going to be the daily tactical stuff. And so he's going to get reports from each of the leaders within the organizations. I own Coldwell Banker residential outright. Just Kate and I. I am a 50% shareholder of our commercial CBC, about 50% of this existing commercial agency, which was amazing. 100% owner of Legacy Property Management. And then I have 2 business partners within MC Roofing that run the day-to-day operations. One is our project manager and the other one is our field manager, and they're minority owners in that. And then I have 2 partners with Chili Dip. So a lot of different partners, but each one of those companies has at least one head that will be reporting to the COO. And then the executive assistant also will be working in collaboration with the COO to make sure that the projects that we have that for that week or that quarter, those goals are being met. And then what I'll do is I'll end up getting the reports. And then obviously I'll also be having the conversations with people if we are, not meeting it and the COO has had numerous conversations and we're still running into challenges, then I'll come in there and say, all right, so what's our plan? How do we move forward here? So very, very excited about this.
Do you work off of EOS or any type of like structured operational program?
No, in fact, so the gentleman that we've hired is very familiar with EOS. In fact, he was a 20-year Army Ranger lieutenant colonel, retired, and so this guy is all about SOPs. So that's going to be really, really good. That's never been my strength. Communications obviously has always been fairly good for me, but we didn't ever have a structured chain of command in the sense of these are the things and these are the stuff that I need. I do daily reports, but once again, we're getting into this next realm of we're doing so much business that we have to have more details and we have to have more, quote unquote accountability.
Let's shift gears to finish up. I know you're a family man and family is a priority to you. And I know because like you're always at games and you and Kate have to like figure out who's going to what games because your kids are in a lot of sports. Some people listening, they might think like, yeah, he works all the time. Give us some like insight to your mind on balancing, integrating, whatever you want to call it, work and family.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I think first and foremost, you're right. I think family has been so important to me over the years. As a young entrepreneur, I probably didn't do the best of that. I was trying to reinvent myself. I was trying to prove that I was actually, that I could be a successful person, especially when the jersey came off. But here's the thing. So we didn't ever discuss this, but this last weekend, just a buddy and I just ran the 52-mile Bighorn race up in Sheridan, Wyoming. And that takes a level of commitment, but you always have to find the time, right? And I don't think there's anything about balance that we have to be worried about because there's seasons of life that are going to be in balance, right? My son, our oldest, is going into his senior year of high school. My relationship and the time that I'm going to spend with him is going to be a little bit in balance now. I'm going to make sure I'm spending extra time with him to prepare him for as much as I possibly can to be a young man ready for the next level, the next state, whatever thing he's going to go into. And so I've always looked at our businesses. I've looked at marriage. I've looked at family of like, I'm not trying to balance everything out. I'm trying to give the attention that I need to the things that are the most important at that time. And so I think going through different seasons of life, recognizing the season you're in. One thing I kept on telling people is that my summer starts Sunday, right? We've been out of school for 2 weeks. It couldn't start then. I was still training. I was still having to get up super early. I was going to bed early. You know, my household is not waking up until about 8 o'clock at night, and I'm going to bed, and it sucks, but it was very temporary. Now my summer has officially started. My whole routine has changed up. And so I think people need to realize what season of life they're in, what their goals are for that season of life, and be able to understand like it's okay to be a little bit imbalanced as long as you continue to have your priorities in mind, right? And so I talk about faith and family, business. I talk about health, all the time. All those things are very important to us. And so as long as I'm giving attention to each and every one of those, I still feel like our capacity can still fill all of those needs.
We're going to finish up with health. I don't talk about that very often on the podcast. I'm in a lot of these groups with a lot of healthy, fit, focused entrepreneurs, and that's not a lot of entrepreneurship. If I go to some franchising conferences, they are not focused on health. There's a handful of people that I'll see in the gym in the mornings, or going out and doing something active, but like they're not most of them are not focused on health like some of these groups that you and I are involved with, where health is a priority. Even like the Tribe of Investors, like we do. When we have meetings, there's opportunity to sweat. There's opportunities to get a workout in. Like we prioritize that type of thing. So if you could give some advice to entrepreneurs, besides, doing a cold plunge in the chili dip that you, the company that you founded, and I have one, by the way, I bought one from you, love it. Like, what would you tell entrepreneurs or want to share with entrepreneurs from your personal journey about health?
Sure. Well, I think, one phrase that always comes back to me is that if you want to build confidence, you have to build evidence. And I think a lot of us as men, we lack the confidence that we can do certain things. That, we can be extremely good businessmen in life, but we might not have the confidence anymore because we're just too comfortable with where we're at in life. And there's really no need to be pursuing something else. And so I would just say that as men, like we are called for discomfort. Right? If as a business owner, you have to be able to be uncomfortable through your growth as a business person. And so the more that we can do that, the better we're going to be able to thrive in those environments. And so like when I get discomfort in a physical thing, it only helps me in the business aspect, because I'm able to have those hard conversations. I'm able to actually do the things that I know that are very important for the growth and the success, which is usually making hard decisions and having the hard conversations with people, which a lot of us try to avoid as many times. And so I know if I want to be the healthiest that I can possibly be in my business and in my marriage and in my family life, that the health for me personally has to be there. There's 3 pictures behind me. I think you can see on my wall, right? Obviously there's the one, we got our man Jesus back there. I got the one we were up at the Grand Tetons, at the very top of the Grand Tetons, and the other one is me celebrating in the Snake River. Right? I don't think that we celebrate enough the victories that we achieve throughout our careers and across our life. I really enjoy celebrating going through hard things. I really enjoy celebrating taking on big challenges and enjoying those moments. And so I just would encourage people, like, when's the last time you celebrated a big personal goal that you were going after? And, if it's just business, then you're definitely you got to make sure those priorities are a little bit more aligned with really, truly creating a great life.
I love it, man. This is why I wanted you on here. Like, I know I can hear it from people. I've been getting more requests from listeners and friends that are just like, they love these just conversations with the everyday entrepreneur that are doing amazing things and aren't on this franchising podcast circuit. So this has been amazing. We got into so many different things, but hopefully this is encouraging to a lot of franchisees out there too. You can continue down the franchising route, which I've done, and you can start out in franchising, get into entrepreneurship, small businesses, start your own, probably because you have more confidence and you have more structure and systems, and you've seen how business actually works. Or you can do a bit of both. So I love franchising, but I love entrepreneurship in general and being a business owner. And I love being able to go from, like you said, entrepreneur to business owner. One of the things that you mentioned, and I want you to give us any last thoughts, but you mentioned needing to understand P&Ls, balance sheets, financials. I think that's an area that a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, franchisees miss all over the board. I see even franchise founders are not doing enough of that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And that was probably not the most fun or easy thing for you at the time. Maybe not. So appreciate you bringing that up. Any last bits that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I would say this. I think that each of our journeys that we're on is so different than everybody else's. And whatever it is that makes you comfortable. So like, I'll just give the P&Ls example. I am not going to look at P&Ls the way that you look at P&Ls. I'm probably not going to look at them as many times as you are going to. And I think that's the challenge that we as owners face, is that we want to do because we feel like, well, because they're successful, I've got to do it exactly like they do it. Figure out exactly what type of numbers that you need to look at, that you like to look at, or that you feel are important for your businesses, right? So my P&Ls look different than everybody else's. And then I also am very specific of when I get to see it and the time of the week that I get to see it. So I do Thursday afternoons. I don't do Mondays because I don't want it to ruin my day. I don't do Tuesdays because I'm so busy. I do it Thursday afternoons because I have set up my Thursdays. I get up extremely early. I've got what's called adoration. I do that for about an hour. I fill my cup. I have an amazing day. I'm not having to worry about any of the businesses. I'm working on flame stuff, but then I get to look into my P&Ls because we've also been able to usually replenish the accounts by then too, because of either closings or roofs or stuff coming in. But I look on Thursday afternoons and I'm mentally prepared and able to handle it, whether it's good numbers or whether it's bad numbers. So I would just say, like, find your time, find that time for you, and don't try to imitate what other people are doing.
Love it, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, buddy. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.